Hello, amazing people. My name is Steph, and I'm the project manager of the employability, upskilling, and mentoring projects at Blossom LGBT. I go by the he/him pronouns, and Meike, you can see them on the screen, goes our project officer goes by the she/her pronouns, and Dee, our amazing host for the evening, goes by the they/them pronouns. I'm going to give them the chance to introduce themselves in a minute. So all right, we're thrilled to have you join us this evening for our Developing Your Personal Brand webinar, tailored specifically for queer, trans, and non binary individuals who navigate multiple careers and wear many different hats. This unique event is designed to help you strengthen your personal brand, ensuring it reflects the diverse, multifaceted nature of your professional journey. At Blossom LGBT, we're a dedicated charity. We're committed to enhancing the employability and skills of queer youth aged 16 to 30. Our mission is to empower queer youth by providing tools, resources, and support needed to thrive in today's competitive job market. We understand the unique challenges faced by our community, especially when it comes to navigating multiple career paths, and we are here to help you succeed as much as we can. We believe in the potential of every queer, trans, and non binary person. We recognize that the journey to self empowerment and career success can be particularly challenging for those in our community due to societal biases and barriers. Our work is focused on breaking down these obstacles, fostering resilience, and helping queer youth develop the confidence and skills to succeed no matter how many different hats we wear. Today's world, personal branding is more important than ever, or so I'm told, particularly for individuals with diverse career paths. For queer, trans, and non binary individuals, developing a strong, authentic personal brand is crucial to stand out in multiple fields, and to confidently express your identity and professional values. This webinar will provide you with some practical strategies to craft a personal brand that truly represents who you are, whether you're navigating one career or several ones. To interact with us today, you could leave comments on any of the platforms that you're using on YouTube, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Or if you'd like more anonymity, you can use the QR code that's popping up on the screen and to leave your comments or feedback or ask any questions. We look forward to having you with us tonight and to hear what Dee has to say. And over to you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Dee Whitnell. My pronouns are they, them, and today I'm going to be talking to you about personal branding. But first, a little bit about me. I am an award-winning sex educator. I've been creating sex education content for 4 years now. I am a author. My book comes out in February 2025, Beyond Bananas and Condoms, the LGBTQ plus inclusive sex education that we all were neglected by when it comes to learning about ourselves, our gender, our relationships in the classroom. I am also the audience development manager for Queer AF, and I've also been a journalist now for over 2 years. But as we have already said, I wear I wear many hats. And today I want to talk about how I kind of collect all of the areas of work that I do and how I make sure that regardless of who I'm talking with, what brand I'm talking with, what I'm creating, that D is always at the center of it. I am also a MA graduate. I did my master's degree on gender, sexuality, and culture. And yeah, today we're going to be talking about personal branding. And it's something that I had to learn myself. And it's something that I'm really excited to be talking to you all about today. And we will get straight into it. As was already said, feel free to comment throughout. I will make sure that I check the comments throughout, and at the very end we'll have time for questions as well. So feel free to wait till the end or feel free to comment throughout. So firstly, what is personal branding? To give you a really brief summary, your personal brand is how you define the distinctive value that you yourself bring to your career. And it doesn't necessarily have to be you as an individual. It can be what assets you bring, what kind of tone you bring, and just the energy that you bring. And I think when it comes to queer and neurodivergent individuals, we have a lot of energy and a lot of ourselves to bring to the table. And most authentic journalism, most authentic content creating by queer individuals is always about putting ourselves forward and sharing personal experiences and relating to the audience. And that's something that I've been doing through my sex education content, through my gender identity content, through my own personal experience online now for 4 years. But I didn't start off knowing what I wanted to do online. I just one day decided, hey, I finished a degree. What do I want to do with it? And I started creating online content. And from then, I realized it's not as easy as just putting yourself out there. So today, I'm going to go through some little tips and tricks that I've been, building over the last few years. I'll provide you with some questions that I definitely highly recommend that you write down, that you kind of brainstorm throughout. Feel free to use this as a brainstorming session. And yeah, I'm really excited to get into it. So let's begin. So, a personal brand shouldn't box you in. And I think that's one of the main fears that people have when they begin creating content, where when they begin to work with organizations, is they want to box themselves into one specific niche. But when you're queer, you're neurodivergent, you're a person of color, you have a faith, whether you are all of those things, there is too much of you to put into one box. So it's important to allow yourself to go beyond your branding, to allow yourself to go beyond maybe the specific niche of content or creation that you make online. It's important that regardless of what niche you put out there, that you always remember that you are an intersexual person. You have so many different hats, so many different parts of you. And it's important to think about what parts you want to share online and what parts you don't want to share online, what parts would benefit other individuals and what parts do you want to keep private. And that can be really scary at the beginning. And it's something that I definitely didn't understand at the beginning. I shared everything, and now I kind of understand, or not kind of, I know exactly what I want to provide online and what I want to talk about online. So, as I said, I wear many different hats, and how I may act or present myself in those spaces may be different depending on what hat I'm wearing. So, if I'm going into a journalistic space, I will obviously have my journalist hat on, but D is always there. If I'm creating sex education content, I've got my sex educator hat, but D is always there. And it's important that regardless of what you're creating, somebody can see the you in the work. So if they took the work out of your page, away from your platform, whatever platform it is, they can still see, oh, this content is by this individual, and I recognize that because of X, Y, and Z. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Having a personal brand is really important. It may not feel like it in the beginning because you just want to create content. You just think, I'll just put myself out there. And a lot of the time, videos that go viral don't really have a personal branding behind it because the algorithm can be potluck sometimes. But if you want to go into this field of work, it's important that you do have a personal brand. And the reason that personal brands are so important is because they show that you are authentic. It shows that you are a real person, that you understand what you give and what companies should be taking from you and what you can provide to the wider community and to organizations, to charities, to anyone that you want to work with in the future. It's also really important that you understand your niche and that you create your niche, and we will speak a little bit about that later. And it also builds trust with you and your community. If your community know what they're getting from you, they expect certain content or a certain tone or a certain energy, they will come back for that because they want to see more of it and they enjoy that. And that trust is really, really good to build because you want that trust from your followers and you want that trust from organizations and brands that you may work with so you can continue to work with them. So they know what you're getting, so they know what they're getting, sorry, and you know what you would want to provide for them. So I'm going to talk briefly about the advantages that come with personal branding. One of the advantages is establishing a personal brand enhances your visibility within your industry and field. As a sex educator, when I first came into the field, everybody was talking about pleasure. Everybody was talking about how to have great sex. And when I started creating content, I followed what everybody else was doing because that's all there was within that sphere. And then I began to realize that actually the content I was creating didn't reflect my experiences, and the content I wanted to see wasn't out there. So I decided to make that content. And through several trials and errors, going through different niches, different concepts, I landed on where I am now, where I talk about LGBTQ plus sex, I talk about my experience as a trans person, and I always intersect all of my content with those key elements. It's really important that you understand your personal brand and how that impacts your niche, but also how your niche impacts your personal brand. A strong personal brand can contribute to career growth, and it opens up new opportunities, including job offers, collaborations, and promotions. If a brand or an organization has seen you create content with another brand, they will want to replicate that or do it better. So if you create something, it's important to remember, will I want to create this content again? Will I enjoy creating this content again? And do I want this content to be what people know of me? I've had so many organizations reach out to me about my content or about working with me as a trans and non-binary individual because they know that that's what they're getting. They know that that's where their money is going. And sorry, I was just checking the comments. And that's really important, building up your relationship with brands so they know that when they come to you, they know what they're getting, they know what to expect, and you know what you can provide for them as well. I'm going to answer a question now that I can see in the comment box. Do you ever feel lost in your own brand? How do you separate the digital you versus the real you? That's a really, really good question. And for a long time, I didn't separate the two. And that did lead me to have insecurities and poor mental health because I viewed likes as validation for my identity. And I think for a lot of trans and queer people, that's what we do. When we first start sharing our stories online, if we share a story that is very personal to us, that explores an element of ourselves that's very internal, that's very private, but we want to make it public, it can feel disheartening when it doesn't get likes or it doesn't get shares or it receives hate. One thing that I would really say is that regardless of what your brand is, you are more than your brand. And it's always important to put your boundaries forward and to make sure this is what I want to put online, this is what I don't want to put online. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in a moment. I'm going to answer another question before I continue. Is it better to be a brand like a company or a person when it comes to this? For me personally, I think being a person, showing that you are human, showing that you have emotions, showing that, everyday life can be hard is better than being a brand per se. Of course, there are organizations that have their own branding and they do amazing work. But if you are an individual, if you're creating content for you, and if you are the face of that, it's important that you show your humanity, you show the parts of yourself that maybe a brand wouldn't share. You share your emotions. And I found that I have received more work when I am more open and honest about myself. And of course, as I said, it's setting boundaries. Setting boundaries is very important when it comes to personal brands. However, the content that I create, the content I love the most is when I'm sharing my personal experience. And I know that people who watch that, who consume that, who attend a workshop or a webinar, I know those individuals will relate to that because they know what they're going into. They know what they're paying for or they're subscribing for. And that's, again, building that relationship and building that trust with your following. And finally, one final advantage that comes with personal branding, and there is so many, but I just wanted to condense this down to three. It builds a reputable personal brand, and it helps you stand out from competition by showing your unique skills, your strengths, and your perspectives. As I said, when I first started creating content online, everybody was creating the same kind of content, and I wanted to stand apart and I wanted to show my unique skills, my unique experiences. And because I did that, brands are more willing to work with me because they see that I have something different there. that they want. And it does allow you to stand out, and it does allow you to say, this is what I can provide, and you won't get this anywhere else. And that's really key. And I have found that when I email brands, or when brands email me to work with me, that's the key. They come to me because they know I'm non-binary, they know I'm trans, they know I talk about these experiences online, they know I'm a sex educator, they know what they're getting. So they're more willing to pay for that, or they're more willing to work with you because they know what they're getting into. I have a comment on YouTube before I get into the how. What would you recommend to someone who just starts educational work, looking for workshops, opportunities, or rather work one-to-one with people asking for payment from the beginning, or work for free for views? When it comes to building your clientele, it's really important you consider the fact that we are living in cost of living crisis, and working for free is not necessarily the best way to go about it. However, if you want to build those relationships and you want ongoing work, perhaps you can have a conversation about where this free work can go. Maybe you can have a trial run of some free work or some free content and see how well that does, and then be able to say, hey, this content did really well. Let's see what we can do now in the future. And giving people and organizations and brands that kind of, this is the amount of work that I will do for free. This is what you got out of that free work. Imagine what you would get out of it if I had more time, and I had more money behind it, and I had an outline and all of those things. It's really good to have that, and to have that working relationship with brands. I've been working with brands for a very long time, that I started off doing free work for them when I was able to, and then I'm now being paid for work from them. And then there's brands that I will only take paid work from because I know that the content that they want, or the time and energy that they want, needs to be paid for. And as queer people, as neurodivergent people, we have to be paid for our time. That is the blank line there. Okay, so now we're going to go into how you create your personal brand. And I would highly recommend writing down these questions and brainstorming as I go along, and just kind of see what comes to mind at first. So when it comes to figuring out your personal brand, the first thing you want to do is figure out what drives you. What are your passions? What is the piece of content or the social issue or the news article? What is it that you want to focus on? What is it that you want people to know you for? For me, people know me for my sex education content, they know me for my trans and inclusive content, and they know me for my queer journalism content. When people come to me, when they see my profile, they know this. And that's because when I started creating content, I decided I wanted to create content for trans people that we didn't get before. And that is always at the center of any work I do, regardless of what brand reaches out to me, regardless of what opportunities arise. I always say to myself and to the brand, how can I reflect the trans experience in this? And how can I do so in a way that brings my own personal experiences through so that other people relate? I would start by asking yourself the following questions. And as I go through the questions, I'll give you some of my insights about how I did this along the way. So first, you want to ask yourself, what motivates you? What is something that you are so inspired by? What is a topic that you could talk about for hours? What is that one thing that drives you? For me, that was providing content for trans people that we didn't get. For me, it was about not only creating resources for other people, but resources for me, resources for people that I didn't get when I was growing up. And that's what drives me to this day. I recently did a talk at Bio Pride, and one of the things that I said was that at the center of all my content is my trans experience and my non-binary experience, and that is what drives me. So what motivates you as an individual? I'm going to head over to some comments now, or some questions, I should say. Do you ever feel lost in your own brand? No, I believe I did that one already. What would you recommend to someone who wants to start? Same question. Don't worry, we'll move on. What skills or talents are you most proud of? What are things that you love to share about yourself? What are you really proud of? What do you love? Like, what is on your CV? What, if somebody asked you, describe yourself in a few words, what are the words you would say? For me, I would talk about the fact that I'm so proud of the fact that I was diagnosed as socially anxious at 14 years old, and now I'm doing public speaking roles. And bringing that into my content as well is another layer of my personal brand. One more time, just checking the comments. What skills are you curious about but have yet to build? When I first went into the world of journalism, I had never ever edited a video in my life. I didn't know Premiere Pro. I didn't know how to caption. I didn't know anything. But I knew I wanted to get into that field of work. And since getting into that field of work, I now know how to edit. I now know how to use Premiere Pro. And I'm really proud of my edits because in the beginning, I could not edit at all. And I was able to get a job without having the editing experience, but I learned on the job. And to this day, one of the things that I would love to pursue in the future is creating documentary length videos. And that's what I'm slowly working towards. I'd love to learn more about how cameras work, how film works. So sit down with yourself and think, what do I want to learn? Do I want to learn how to run a podcast? Do I want to learn how to write a script? Do I want to learn how to do spoken word poetry? Think about what you want to learn and what you want to gain from your experience online and through your experience of creating your personal brand. Next, the most important one, I would say, what values do you have? As I've said many times, at the center of all my content is my transness and my non-binariness and my neurodivergent. Your values, again, is what people will reach out to you for. And clearly stating on your content and through your work, through your LinkedIn, wherever you are creating, whatever platform you're using, clearly showing and stating what your values are will bring in the people that you want to work with. Because there may be times that brands or people reach out to you that your values do not match. And that's okay. You can either step away from that conversation or you can investigate and say, these are my morals. I would love to hear more about how you achieve these within your business or organization. And that's something that as a sex educator, I have to do a lot of the time. I have a lot of organizations reach out to me which are female only or woman led. And for me, as a non binary and trans person, I don't feel comfortable creating content for them because that's not my experience. So I always ask, do you have a trans policy? Do you have a policy on inclusive language? And how can you keep me safe online if your brand is specific to a community that maybe I don't necessarily belong to? But most of the time, if it just doesn't align, it's better to step away from that. Sorry, I was just looking at the comments again. What kind of tasks or projects energize you? What is something that you're not going to think, oh, I really do not want to do that task. I want to put that off. I want to do anything else. When you're creating content or when you're creating your brand or when you're working with organizations, it's important that at the heart of it, you're happy, because why else would you be creating content? Making sure that you are happy, that you are energized, that you are so excited to create the content is vital. For me, any project where I can share my personal experience as a non-binary person, where I can debunk myths about binary sex or about sex in general, any kind of queer news or, cheerful queer news, I'm all for that. And they're the projects that energize me. They're the projects that I want to work on. And if I receive a project or an offer that doesn't energize me, I will ask them, hey, would it be okay if I suggest this instead? Because this would energize me. This would benefit my community and my following, and it would benefit you as well. 2 more questions on how to figure out your personal branding. 10 years from now, what do you want to have contributed to the world? And that seems like a really big question, but it's really good to think about the future. What do you want your content to do? Do you want your content to make change? Do you want your content to educate? Do you want your content to live on beyond you? For me, my content is all about educating. It's all about sharing my experience and other people's experiences. It's all about fighting for trans rights. My campaign that I created, Trans Kids Deserve to Grow Up, that has its own personal branding as well, which is interlinked with my own. But at the centre of that campaign is about fighting for young people and fighting for trans young people's rights. And knowing where I want to take that in a few years motivates me to work towards that. And finally, what do the people you most admire have in common with the content that you want to create, or just in general? If you are a lover of sex education content online, maybe you should get into that. Creating content should make you happy. You should be excited to make content. You should be excited to work with brands. So, seeing what content you're consuming, what workshops you're attending, what brands you are buying from will allow you to understand what you want to create as well. And normally, you will find that people who are following certain individuals will be creating similar content because we want to consume the content that we also want to provide. I'm now going to go on to how to use your personal branding to build clientele. This is something that I am truly only getting fully into in the last few months since going fully freelance. But from my time of freelancing and developing my own brand, these are things that I have been slowly learning over the years, but things that I am now fully in force and doing in my everyday life, in every email, in every content I create. Firstly, having your personal brand, understanding your personal brand allows you to understand your audience, which makes pitching ideas or pitching workshops or content so much easier because you know what your audience will like and you're able to tell a brand or an organization, I know what my following will like. So if you want to work with me, this is the content I suggest. And as I said previously, when I reach out to brands and when I talk to brands, I tell them what they should be asking from me. And 100% of the time, they agree because they trust that I know my audience, that I know my following. So, understanding your audience, understanding what they want from you, what they know from you, what they expect from you is key. Networking is also so impersonal, is so important, sorry, to personal branding. And networking means it's easy to pitch ideas to other people because you have other people in your corner who are in the same sphere of work, who maybe are followers, maybe who enjoy your content as well. Having a little group of individuals who you admire, who you all are in the same kind of field, means that you can pitch ideas to them and they can pitch out to you, or you can share ideas. One of the things that I love about content creating is being able to uplift other creators and pass on opportunities that don't fit me as a white, non binary trans person. I will pass on opportunities that I think will suit other people and they will pass them on to me. And that networking is a lifesaver. It really is. Feeling confident to share an idea or a concept when working with a brand or organization and providing reasons as to why this idea would work, not only for you, but for them. As I said, understanding your audience and knowing what your audience wants from you, knows of you, expects from you, means that when you pitch ideas to organizations, you have the authority to say, actually, what you're pitching to me won't work for me, but here's how it could. And that also shows the brand that you understand your audience, you understand what you're creating, you understand what you're putting out there. And finally, having a personal brand allows you to build clientele because it shows your consistency. If you are creating content that is in the same theme, if it has the same tone, if it has the same templates, if it comes from the same place, so if you're talking about queerness or transness or non-binariness, understanding what your niche is allows for consistency, and that shows good management skills because it shows that you know if a piece of work or an idea will work for you and whether it doesn't work from you. And I think it's really important to know that you can step away if a piece of content or an idea or a pitch lands in your inbox and it doesn't suit you. That's okay. You can either walk away from it if it doesn't suit you or benefit you, or you can say, here's how I actually suggest that we work around this. When it comes to personal branding as well, I think that when we first start off with developing our branding, we worry about change. We're fearful. And as I said, it's so important that you don't box yourself in when it comes to content creating, when it comes to creating your personal brand, because you are so much more than what you put out online, or you're so much more than one aspect of you. As I said, I'm a sex educator, a journalist, a content creator, a video editor, and so on and so forth. I could do so many other things. So it's important that if you want to change something up, you can, you're allowed to, you're not forced to stick to your personal brand. You can decide that maybe you've grown out of your personal brand, maybe you've developed, maybe you've learnt new skills, and moving on and developing is important. It's part of everyday life. It's part of every sort of workspace you're going to be in. Development is so important, and change is completely okay. You don't have to try something and stick to it forever. If you have an idea and you want to create something and it does well, you don't have to stick to it. Recently, I had a video that hit 2 million views, and that's really good in regards to my targets. But that video didn't reflect me anymore. I didn't want it on my platform because it just didn't sit right with me. So I archived it, and many people would say, "Why would you do that? It's at 2 million. It's a great stat. You should keep it." But for me personally, I don't see myself in that anymore. And as a trans and non-binary individual, because I have dysphoria, because I change my expression, because I grow as a person, I don't always like seeing those videos or those posts on my page. So it's okay to have a cleanse of your page. You don't have to keep the content out there forever. My best tip is that as you grow as a person, your personal brand should grow. So if you discover something new, if you are interested in a new topic, you're allowed to explore that. You don't have to box yourself into just what your audience knows you for. Because if your audience is there for you, they will love this new aspect of you. And it may take time for them to get used to the change, but at the center of it, they're here for you. And a new idea might spark new interest. It might bring in new followers who maybe didn't know that you existed before. And as we grow as people, our content, our branding, our work should be growing too. When it comes to trialing new concepts or formats, it's really good because it allows you to understand exactly what your audience wants, as I said, but also it allows you to understand what you want to create. If trialing some new content makes you feel amazing, keep doing it. One of the things that I find really difficult is sometimes I will get myself into a phase where I'm not enjoying content anymore, and I will sit with myself and ask, why is that? Why am I not enjoying that content? Because, as I said, you and your personal interests, your personal goals should be at the center of your content or your work. If you're not enjoying it, then you won't get the outcome that you want. You have to make sure that you're enjoying your content. And if that means changing something up, if that means growing, then that's completely healthy and completely normal to do. One of the tips that I would say is that when you are trialing new content, or you're trialing a new pitch, or you're trialing a new phase of your brand, it's really important to give it 3 times a go. The rule of 3 is really good here. So try something 3 times, and if it doesn't work, then you can drop it. Or you can think to yourself, why didn't it work? Did it not work because of a certain editing technique? Did it not work because of how I presented it? How could I change that? Or maybe it just didn't work because it just doesn't sit right on that platform. Maybe you have to trial it on another platform. And another thing is that it's completely okay to swap between platforms. You don't have to have all your content across all platforms. You can be slightly different on different platforms. You'll see that a lot of individuals, when they're on LinkedIn, they're way more professional. They talk about the behind the scenes of their content and their brand. And that's great. But that may not do well on TikTok, because TikTok is more about viral sensation. It's more about personality. So having kind of a slightly different angle for different platforms is really good as well. And knowing what works well on what platform and what doesn't work well on one platform is really good to keep an eye on, because that shows you what kind of things that you can do in different areas, and whether or not you want to cross post to other platforms, or whether or not you want to keep those slightly separate, which for me personally, my TikTok is more funny, it's more memey, and my TikTok following prefer that. They prefer a little bit more of humor there. But my Instagram prefers a bit more of an educational tone. So it's about working out which platform you want to work with. And you don't have to work with every platform, but it's about working out which platforms you want to work with and how you want to angle yourself and present yourself in those different spaces. And finally, when it comes to change, it also shows that you're working to provide better content for your following, but also better content for you. If you are creating the same content you've been creating for years and years and years, and you're getting no new successes from it, no new jobs, it's going to make you not want to create content. And at the center of all this is you wanting to create content, you wanting to create a brand, you wanting to get job opportunities for this. So you should be enjoying it, and you should be bettering yourself. You should be learning from it, and you should be figuring out, what do you want to do? What do you want to get from this content? What do you want your followers to get from this content? And that can change over time. My content went specifically only from sex education content to news and sex education to my trans experience, news and sex education content. And through that development, I have followers that have joined me along the journey. I have brands that have worked with me throughout all of those journeys, and they've seen me develop. They've seen that I have understood what my content is. I understand what my audience wants, and I'm growing and I'm changing, and I trial new content all the time. And sometimes it does amazing and sometimes it doesn't. And that's okay. It's okay if it doesn't do well sometimes, because it's all about learning and trialing and figuring it out, especially as a queer individual. Taking risks can be scary, especially when creating content online. But most of the time, those risks are the best content that I've made. And it's so silly, but they do so well. And I find that the less I get in my head about, oh, is this what my audience wants? Oh, is this what I want to put out there? And think, is this what I want to see? Is this what I would want to be watching and engaging and consuming? The content is just much better. The work that I do is much better because I want to view it. So I come across that way, and then an audience can read that. There's a question in the comments box. Are you not afraid that someone who will buy your workshop, for example, already seeing your free content and gets info you give away for free in the paid workshop? Did it ever happen? One more time. Are you not afraid that someone who will buy your workshop, for example, already seeing your free content and gets info you give away for free in the paid workshop? When it comes to whether or not I put paid content out or I do free content, it really depends on what the content is. It really depends on how much energy I put behind it. But most of the time, all the content that I put out is for anyone to engage with. But when I'm creating content specifically for a brand or a business or an organization or a charity, that content is specific to them. So it may sit specifically on their platforms, or it may be, directed towards their staff. So it really depends on who I'm creating for and what I'm creating for. Of course, as all content creators know, your content will be taken, it may be copied, it may be reposted, which is why branding is important, because people will know if that content is yours, if you have a good branding, if you have a watermark of your handle or your email address or anything like that posted on the photo, if it's a color scheme that people know you by, then if they see that on another platform, they will know that it's your content and they can alert you to that, which has happened many times for me. So that's where creating a personal brand helps you, because it kind of keeps you safe from people stealing things, because people will know that it's your content. They'll know it's your tone. They'll know it's your work. They will be able to sense that. And then finally, before we get into open questions for everybody, it's really important that you separate yourself from your personal branding. Somebody asked previously, how do you do that? Should you separate yourself from your personal branding? And I do think it is important that you think to yourself, what are the boundaries that I have online? What do I not want to share? What do I want to share? And that can change. And you can have soft limits and you can have hard limits. So you can have times where, yeah, this content that I'm creating or this work that I'm doing, I'm really happy to put that out into the world. And then you can have times where you just don't want to put that out into the world, or you actually don't want it to continue being out in the world and you want to remove it. And that's okay. I really recommend, as I said with the questions, writing out your boundaries for creating content and work is really important. I have a few boundaries when it comes to my content creation. Most of them relate to my personal relationships with my partner or with family or any sort of legal ID and stuff like that. But when it comes to what I do feel confident creating online and what I do feel comfortable creating online, I now know exactly what I do want the world to see. And sometimes I may slip up, I may create a post that actually I kind of think, maybe that was a bit too personal, maybe I didn't want to show that. But that hasn't happened for a while. Normally, I will put out content that I want to see, that I would want someone else to create. So I create it. But having those boundaries is really important, and telling organizations and brands that you have that boundary is important. There's been multiple times where sex ed or sexual health or sex positive brands have reached out to me asking me to collaborate or to provide a review or to talk about a certain toy or underwear. And they will ask me to do certain things, and I don't feel comfortable with that. So, asserting your boundaries straight off the bat and giving them an alternative of how you can showcase the item or showcase the work is really important. And it also shows that you have authority over your own content and your own space, and you know what will work and what won't work. Because if you're creating something that you're not comfortable creating, it won't work. You'll look awkward, you won't have a fun time, it won't be a fun time for anyone. So that is all of the points that I have, but feel free to ask any questions that you may now. You can also ask questions anonymously as well. When it comes to content creating, it really is sitting down with yourself and thinking about your values and what you want to put out into the world and what you would like to see in the world. If there's a gap, if there's something that you wish you could have learned growing up, if there's something you wish you could see, create it. It's important to be that representation, and it can be hard to be the representation when you don't see the representation. But taking that first step will allow other people to come forward and create content as well. Because at the end of the day, it's all about creating content together as a community and learning off each other and helping one another, especially within the queer community. Most queer content creators work together with other queer content creators to create pieces or workshops or work with brands to put that foot forward, to open the door for other queer and trans individuals, because sometimes there's no trans or queer person in the room, so we have to be the first. And if that is something that you want to explore, if there's a topic that you want to be the first to explore, go ahead and do that. I will now check the questions. Thank you. What prices would you recommend for workshops or mentorship one-to-one work? There's many things that you need to consider when it comes to prices. You need to consider what qualifications you have, what you bring, what the workshops or mentorships will entail, how much time it will take for you to create them, or how much time it will take you to deliver them. It's also important to think about the community that you're providing for. So, of course, we know that queer, neurodivergent, and POC communities are most often less paid. And they are the individuals that may need mentorship, may need support more than their cis white heterosexual counterparts. So if you can create different tiers within your pricing for different individuals, that's amazing, because we're going through a cost of living crisis, but everyone deserves access to resources. In the same breath, however, you deserve to be paid for your work. And it's important that you remember that you also have to make a living off it. And that can feel really icky in the beginning to think, oh, I don't know if I should put that price. But you need to make a living. You need to make sure that it's sustainable so you can continue creating amazing content or workshops or mentorships for people out there. think I have one more question that I did not. There we go. It's hard to find a price where I get enough, but also give enough value. Everything seems to be so important to share. As I said, it's about considering what you bring to the table, how much time and energy you're bringing, and what individuals will get out of it. It is important to put a price on your work, on your content creation. And as I said, that can feel really icky in the beginning, but it is important because that shows your value as an individual as well. And you can look at other people's price ranges and market, but it's important to think about what your necessities are, what you need to make a living out of this, if this is going to be your full-time work. And yeah, it takes some time to get used to, but you'll figure it out, and it takes some trial and error as well. I believe that is all the questions for now. I will say that when it comes to your personal brand as a queer and neurodivergent individual, please be kind with yourself as well, and know that you may not have all the answers. You may not have the most beautiful looking templates or logo. You might be still figuring out how to write your CV, how to create a media deck. These things take time, and it's okay to be rough with it at first. You don't have to go into content creating or go into brand work looking spotless. I think if you, as a person at the core of it, are always center of your work, if people recognize you, if people recognize your work, they recognize your tone, they recognize what you bring to the table, that can work so much better than somebody who's pitching a glossy media deck that is very impersonal. For example, on my media deck, I share 5 silly little facts about myself. So people who work with me know that I'm not just this sex educator and journalist. I'm also neurodivergent, and I love animatronics. And sharing those small little facts humanizes you. And that's, I think, key for queer and trans people, is that sharing our experiences is so important for the human experience. It's so important that people can relate to us, that they can see themselves in us. So feel free to have fun with it. You don't have to make yourself look professional in the sense of you have to separate yourself. You can be silly with it. You can be fun with it. And I think that's the beauty of the queer community, is that everybody is so, creative. And I've seen such amazing media decks, such amazing CVs from individuals that are hand drawn, that are creative, that are videos. You don't have to go down the route that everybody else goes down. If you've got a special, unique skill, or you've got something you really want to share with people, share it. I share my love for animatronics with people. Does that get me more work? Probably not. But it shows people that I'm a real person, and that they should hire me because I am a real individual and that I share experiences with the real community. I have a question. Thank you so much. The payment question is very interesting. Being also had a question about a schedule. Ooh, let me go through. How do you set a schedule for yourself to post content? At the moment, I don't schedule my content per se, but I did for a while. And through my work with Queer AF, I do schedule content, and I will make out a rough kind of plan for the week. However, with my own content, I usually think, okay, what am I missing? Have I uploaded a reel this week? Have I uploaded a static grid post? Have I uploaded something personal? Have I reported on the news? And I think understanding what content you're creating and putting those into categories, and then seeing maybe what days they work better or what days you prefer to create, then you can work out a schedule for yourself. But don't hold yourself to a schedule, I would say. Even though it may seem like, scheduling in posts is the best way forward, sometimes a post can go up at a scheduled time and it just won't do great. And sometimes a post will go up at 10 p.m. when no one's meant to be posting, and it will do amazing. Being flexible with your schedule is so important. For so long, I kept myself to a schedule, and in the end, I really hated having to wake up and think, oh, it's a Thursday, I need to make this sort of post. Making sure that the content you're creating brings you joy means that on days you may not want to make certain content, you may want to make other content. That's okay, be flexible with it. But if you do want a kind of brief schedule, I normally write down the videos or content I want to do throughout the week and just kind of let myself do them as I feel comfortable, and when I feel comfortable, or when I'm not feeling dysphoric enough, or when I just have enough time to do it. How do you split your time between your brand, working, and leisure? Do you have hard boundaries? I do set hard boundaries. This is something that I've been working on for a while now, and it's something that I'm still working on. But as a neurodivergent person, I know burnout and I know when enough is enough. I normally make sure that I'm not creating content after 8 p.m. in the evening unless something amazing happens or I get a burst of energy. I normally like to just listen to my body and listen to my mind. And if I'm not in the space to be creating, or if I need to take time, I take time. I don't force myself to create something if I can't. And if I have a deadline that I need to meet, I will talk with a brand or organization or person and say, I'm sorry, I'm burnt out at the moment, or I haven't got enough spoons right now, but I can do this at a later date. And being honest with brands has worked for me in the past. Showing that you're human and that you have, everyday issues like everybody else is really important. So don't hold yourself to specific times. I guess that kind of goes into the whole schedule situation. But understanding what works well for you is important. For some people, they prefer working in the evenings. For me personally, I love getting up in the day, doing all my filming in the morning, and then spending the rest of the day editing. But some folks wake up much later and do their content in the evenings. So it's about figuring out what works for you. I also have a hard boundary about weekends. I make sure that I do not post on weekends, or if I do, it's pre-made content that I can just post or schedule automatically. So I'm not taking any more time away from me and from, spending time with my partner or just enjoying myself, because even though content creating is my joy, I absolutely love working with brands. I love creating. I get burnout too, and it's important that I engage in other activities other than just editing and creating. But yes, I believe that is all of the questions. But I probably, Steph will probably say this again. If anybody watching this has any further questions, my Instagram link will hopefully be on screen or in the comments. So there we go. So feel free to message me if you have any queries. You'll be able to find my email through my Instagram as well, or find me on LinkedIn, which is just D Whitnell. And yeah, I'm more than happy to talk about anything that you'd like to talk about. I know that as a trans and queer person, creating your personal brand can be scary, and reaching out to brands can be scary, and just putting yourself out there can be scary. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So yeah, Steph, back to you.
Hi. Thank you so much, Dee. This was really nice. Hey, Meg. Hey. I personally learned a lot. I have no idea. I didn't know anything about developing personal brands. So this was really an eye opener for me, really. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on this webinar, Developing Your Personal Brand. Really hope that you found the session as inspiring as as I did, and full of practical advice that you can apply into your unique career journey. Just remember, at Blossom, we're here to support you in every step of the way as you navigate your professional personal growth. As Dia said, your brand is a reflection of your authentic self. And embracing the diverse aspects of who you are, and as your greatest strength. Did I say that correctly?
Amazing. I've taught you
Okay.
so well.
Thank you so much. A heartfelt thank you to you, Dee, for sharing your insights and your knowledge. And thank you to all of our viewers for your openness and engagement. Really amazing questions we've had today. Before we conclude, remember that your learning journey doesn't stop here. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. Reach out to Dee on their social media, Instagram and TikTok. I hope that they're nicely put out there. Your feedback is essential to us, so please take a moment to share your thoughts and suggestions as well. You can still use your QR code if you'd like to remain anonymous. You can send us emails as well, info@blossom.lgbt. I should have put this up there, I just realized. You can follow us on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. If you want to keep up with our upcoming webinars and workshops, you can go on Eventbrite and OutSavvy. You can sign up to our mailing list on the website. And just next month, for 18 plus only, it's a mixology workshop on the 5th of October. This is why it's 18 plus only. I'd also like to highlight our mentoring scheme for queer, trans, and non-binary youth, where we provide support for personal and professional growth. Whether you're interested in being a mentor or a mentee, please reach out to us for more information. And let's continue to support each other on this journey of self-discovery and growth. And until we meet again, please remember to be authentic to yourself and embrace the fullness of who you are. Take care and good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.